training.
Now let's head to Kisumu. Lake Victoria Tourism Association is calling upon Kenyans to consider Western Kenya as an alternative destination to promote domestic and international tourism for the 42 counties that are not under lockdown. This statement from Chairman Robinson Anyal comes at a time when the region is struggling to get to its economic feet from the devastating impact of COVID-19. Kevin Ogutu spoke to Mr. Anyal earlier on in Kisumu.
Well, the Lake region has clearly not been spared by the vagaries of COVID-19 pandemic. And during a statement to journalists yesterday, the chairman of Lake Victoria Tourism Association, Mr. Robinson Anyal, I'm fortunate enough to be with him right here, said that there is need for both the national government and also the counties to consider really cutting down on some of these levies and taxes so that the hospitality industry can have some time to really break the even. Well, I'm made to understand that in this region, the hospitality industry is operating at about 30% or so. But for more details, as I mentioned, here is Mr. Robinson Anyal for really we need to hear from the horse's mouth. And welcome to KTN News, Mr. Anyal. Yesterday you made it very clear that the region has not been spared, and there is need for both the national and the county governments to look into really sparing you from some of these taxes and levies, in as much as most of them are in the law. But you say that there is need for people to make a special consideration, given that this is really a special moment in our lives. We are dealing with a pandemic, and now we need to get it more straight from you in terms of how the sector is doing in the Lake region. We're talking about 14 counties. First of all, give us an overview of how the hospitality industry, the tourism sector, is faring.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me today in the show. I'm Robinson Anyal, as you've said, the chairman of Lake Victoria Tourism Association, the umbrella association for tourism and hospitality in the Western region. The Western region is basically the Lake region economic bloc with the 14 counties. After the new restrictions on COVID were put in place, the industry received some shockwaves in terms of operation. I want to say that the industry was already recovering. Just before the announcement, we were doing 30 to 50% bed occupancy. Immediately the announcement was made, and on the period, particularly last week, if you look at the period of the past 2 weeks or so, the occupancy dropped to below 15%. That level of occupancy may not be sustainable for the industry, for the hospitality industry, for some players to even operate. We are only remaining open to keep our properties from degrading, or, this industry is capital intensive. So it is not difficult for any investor to just wake up and say, I'm closing my business today. After all, it's very difficult to reopen a hotel once you've closed it. And at the moment, I'm not aware of one which has closed. But we are at the risk of making that decision. That has brought our members to ask the association to discuss with both the county government and the national government to consider relaxing some of the levies and the taxes. Because the costs which are variable to us, we are able to manage them within our operation. However, there are annual licenses, there are monthly levies we have to pay. Some of the licenses do not depend on the level of the business. It does not depend on the volume of the business you make. Some of them I know may be difficult to review because they're already in law. But to some extent, because everybody else understands the situation where we are, it is easy to relax some of them. It is easy to even reduce some of them. with understanding that this is a pandemic and anything can be done to ensure that the industry, which has a huge multiplier effect on the economy, can still survive. Particularly for the Western region, you know, when you close the capital city, which is the hub, and also the source for us in terms of business. On this side, basically, we are doing 80% of domestic tourism. If you close Nairobi, you actually have killed the industry this side. Because major decisions on conferences, there has to be key decisions. Most corporates, the head office is in Nairobi. For a conference to take place in Kisumu, for instance, there has to be probably a leader who has been coordinating the conference and making the decision from the top there. So conferences are basically died off. Room occupancy, as I've said, and bed occupancy has gone below 50% and not sustainable for us. The option we have is to relax our taxes, or even, but it will be better if it is considered both in the county government on single business permit, on liquor.
Why would you appeal for the people, the Kenyans from the other 42 counties to consider Western region? Are there particular reasons why you think the Western region is a better spot when it comes to matters tourism?
You know, for the other counties which have not locked, which were not locked, for us our focus is on the 14 counties, which is the Western Circuit. The Western Circuit is a merging destination. It is a destination which new things to be explored, new destinations to be explored, including the national parks, Mount Elgon National Park, Ruma National Park. There are opportunities along the beach. You know very well, Homa Bay, Busia are very wonderful beaches that to some extent can be compared to the coast. Right now, our focus is on promoting local tourism. We want our inter-county travel to be encouraged, people to move around to explore what we have. That is our focus. So that is what we encourage because, you know, it is easier to grow or even recover from the effect of the pandemic for the hospitality industry through local and domestic tourism as compared to the international market, which will take time to recover. And there are a lot of restrictions at the moment you see in the US and the UK are put.
Something else I wanted to ask you is, can you maybe break down for us the kind of levies that you are still required to pay, despite the fact that business has really gone down, so that we can look at how the magnitude in terms of the levies that you need to pay on one side, and on the other side, there is no business?
The operational cost we have to meet, in which I say depend on the volume of the business. 90% of the levies and taxes we pay are not fixed on the volume of the business, apart from the 2% we pay as catering levy. The rest are licenses and levies paid annually. Those, as I've said, it does not depend on how you perform in terms of a business. And some of them have huge amounts that if you are basically performing below 15%, you are not, for a small hotel, you may not be able to raise all the licenses and the levies to pay. One of them is the county single business permit. The other one is the liquor license. The next one is the tourism license. And there's also the music copyright. Apart from that, we are also required to, depending on the business, pay the 16%, which is to us VAT. Yeah.
Okay. So looking at, on one hand, we have the lockdown and the effects that come with it, and on the other hand, we still have that potential that is there. So how do you see the future of tourism in the Western region, considering a time when we will no longer be talking about the effects of COVID-19 and also the lockdowns. Let's now look at the projections that we have, and also in terms of people who had initially been looking, having interest in getting into the hospitality industry in the region before the onset of the pandemic.
For the region has been growing over the last 15 years. We've had new hotels coming up to the international standard, 4 or 5-star hotels coming up. There's a lot of interest of people who had wanted to set up hotels. Some have set up, they have not even reopened to operation. They're waiting for the pandemic to people to recover. I must say that hospitality and tourism industry is one of the very resilient industries. We've always recovered from insecurity, from political instability, the negative effect of it. I still believe that we will still recover, provided the economy, the pandemic is managed and the economy recover to the level that people have good, some level of disposable income which they can spend in the industry. However, for faster growth, we must focus on local and domestic tourism.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, and I think that's a very good way of ending that quite a really detailed interview there. A lot coming from Mr. Robinson Anyal, who is the chairperson of Lake Victoria Tourism Association, giving us the opportunities despite the bleak present that we are in. So that is the match that we have from this end. Back to you in studio.
Thank you very much.